Hi everybody, it's Laura. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. Today I have a layout that I made using a My Creative Scrapbook limited edition kit. This layout was made using the May kit, and in the May kit we received a number of papers and embellishments from the 49 and Market collection called Kaleidoscope. And as you could see just from looking at this pattern paper that I'm working with, it was a beautiful collection, lots of pinks, some turquoise, and I just really enjoyed working with it, and I thought that it would be perfect for some tropical photos of my daughter Danielle and her boyfriend Max. They went to the Dominican Republic 2 years ago, I would say, and they took a number of really nice photos that I'm still in the process of scrapbooking. Since this pattern paper that I selected for my background has some images on the right and on the left, I thought that I would have one small photo on one side of the layout and then another one on the other side. I used some of the die cut pieces behind each of the photos, and I wanted the photos to look similar, so I chose similar pieces to go behind both of the photos so that they would look like they went with each other. And then I was thinking that it might look nice to have a banner behind each of the photos to kind of anchor them to the page. So I cut some banners out of strips of white cardstock, and then I use some pattern paper and I'm layering that on top of the white strip, and that'll give a little white border all around the outside. I had a little bit of trouble picking which side I should use because both sides of this pattern paper had such a beautiful print on them, but I decided to go with the one that was made of mainly one color because the background of this layout is kind of busy already. And I do end up using the rest of the paper on another layout. Then I use some distress ink in Vintage Photo, and I ink the edges of all of those pieces that I'm layering behind the photo, and also the pattern paper for both of the banners. For both of the photos, I'm using this same die cut piece. It's just I'm using a different color for each of the photos, and I cut it in half so you'll be able to see a little bit of the blue at the top and the bottom of the photo on the top. And then for the photo on the bottom, I'm going to use a green card. And then for both of the photo clusters, I use a really cool die cut that looks kind of like a doily, and the cluster at the top has a green doily and the one at the bottom has a pink doily. I layer my die cut pieces together, and then I attach the photo cluster down to the banner. And then after I do the photo at the top, I'm going to do the same thing to the photo at the bottom. And because the process for the photo at the bottom is the same as the one for the photo at the top, I didn't include that footage. I always try to strike a balance between showing the necessary things and not boring you by showing repetitive things. I did want to show, however, that after I looked at the clusters, I decided that I wanted to add a little bit of distress to them. So I used my scissors, and I also did some folding of the edges with my fingers, and then I added a little bit more distress oxide in some of those places just because once you distress the edges, some of the ink gets removed. And then I did the same thing to the photo cluster at the top. I distressed the papers around it a little bit more. And then I found this die cut piece that has a really cool edge. So I was thinking that I could cut the top and the bottom off of this card and then use those strips in my photo clusters. First, of course, I added a little bit of ink, and I included the strip on the bottom of the bottom photo and on the top of the top photo. So I'm kind of making a mirror image between those two photos. Everything doesn't have to be exactly mirror image, but I did want them to be similar. There were some chipboard stamps in the kit, so I thought I would try those out on the layout. And then I also wanted to add a little something to the banners, and there were these button chipboard stickers that were in the kit, so I put a green one on the top and an orange one on the bottom. And then I was thinking that it might look nice to add a little bit of modeling paste behind each of the photo clusters. So to add the modeling paste, I use a stencil that I got in a past My Creative Scrapbook kit. This is a Vicki Boutin stencil, and it looks like script writing. And I am spreading it behind where the photo cluster is on the background. And luckily I haven't attached it down yet, which makes it a little bit easier because I can keep placing it on top of the modeling paste or the stencil and see if I like where I've placed the modeling paste. And then I generally don't like the edge of the modeling paste to look like it's a straight line. There is a little bit of an area that's a straight line, but the banner covers that up. So oftentimes I'll go back with my palette knife and I'll scrape away little bits of the modeling paste along the edge just so that it looks a little bit irregular. And then, of course, I want to be careful that I don't smudge the modeling paste that I've already put down with the stencil when I put down more modeling paste. So I'm trying to be careful of that. So I decided to let the modeling paste on the bottom dry a little bit. And then I'm going up to the top and I'm going to add some behind the top photo cluster. So my goal for this summer, or one of them, was to try to get all of my videos that I have on my computer up on my YouTube channel, and I was doing really well with that until last Friday when I went to the Creating Keepsakes convention in Lancaster, which is about 3 hours from me. It took me all day to go to the show, and I had a really good time, but I wasn't able to edit and voice over a video that day. And then ever since then, we've been doing some work on the house. We're finally replacing the 50-plus-year-old cabinets that are in our kitchen, and it's a much bigger deal than I realized. And then when we opened up the wall, we noticed there is a little bit of a problem with our main bathroom, so that's something else we're going to have to address. And while I feel so super lucky that we're able to make these updates to our house, it is a little bit more work on my part than I realized, a little bit of a bigger deal than I thought. So I'm going to keep trying to get these videos up on my channel, and I'm just going to do my best. And I really hope to have them all completed by the end of the summer. Fingers crossed. So now I've added all of my modeling paste to my layout. I added a little bit in the upper left-hand corner because I'm going to put an embellishment up there. I'm not sure quite what at this point. And then I added some white splatters. This is watered down white acrylic paint, and I'm trying to mainly add the splatters in the areas where I have the modeling paste, although you could see that there are some splatters in some other areas as well. And it's funny because the background just looks absolutely covered with modeling paste, but when I layer the photo clusters with the banners on them on top, you're only going to be able to see a very small amount of this stenciling. And I know that for some people that seems very frustrating to put all that work in and then the majority of what you put down on the page gets covered up. I think that to some extent, this comes with the territory of creating a mixed media background. Some of your work is going to get covered up. On this layout, a lot of the modeling paste gets covered up, but I was okay with that because I was really happy with the amount of stenciling that was visible once the layout was completed. So it all worked out. I think that you might be able to plan a little bit better than I did on this layout if you don't want to add a lot of stenciling or mixed media and then not be able to see it on the final product. In the chipboard pack that we received, there was a title that said beautiful, and I added this little sentiment moment underneath it to create a title, beautiful moment. And I really liked the way that looked right underneath that top photo. There was something about the font of the word beautiful that I really liked, and I thought it went along well with my layout. I wanted to add a few more embellishments to the page, so I selected them, and right now I'm inking all of them with the Distress ink so that they'll all match in with all the other elements on the page. I fussy cut out some pink flowers. I really like those flowers. I put those to the right of the title. And I'm also using some of the dimensional flowers that we got in the May kit. I'm using some turquoise ones and also some tiny pink ones. I love this bright color pink. It goes really well with the background. I added a little tab over my photo that's on the bottom, and then I added one of the chipboard stamps to the left-hand side of that bottom photo. And then I'm adding some little sentiments to both photo clusters. The one on the bottom says, live your best life, and the one on the top says, thankful for you. And then I love these colorful butterflies. I have two at the top where I added that modeling paste, and I placed a small blue one at the bottom. I added a couple more sentiments. The one at the bottom says you and me, and then there's one at the top that says dream big. I end up moving that around a little bit, but it still stays in that cluster. And then I use some heavy gel matte medium to attach those dimensional flowers down to the page. And I have to laugh because my husband keeps drilling over my head. He's doing some electrical work in our house, so I have to keep starting and stopping this recording so you don't hear that loud drilling sound. But anyway, I had already decided to attach the blue flowers down, and then I started adding the pink flowers to the clusters. I added a medium-sized flower at the top, and then these really pretty little pink flowers at the bottom. They each have a little sparkly jewel in the center of them. Now I'm going to start attaching some of these elements down to the page. I have the flowers glued down. I wanted to attach the butterflies down, and I wanted to first pop them up on some foam. So I use fun foam. That's my favorite method of giving some dimension to things on my page. I use the kind of foam that's adhesive on one side. It just makes life a little easier. And then in addition to popping up the butterflies on some foam, I also popped up the sentiments that are at the top and the bottom. And those sentiments are very narrow, so I had to cut a very, very narrow piece of foam to go behind them. And when I have really narrow elements like this on my page, I try to use white foam. That way, if you look at the layout at a slight angle, you don't see a really bright color underneath one of the embellishments. So I try to save the white foam for these occasions. I usually buy foam in a big multi-pack where there's all different random colors. There's always a couple of white sheets and a couple of black sheets, and I try to remember to save those for these types of occasions. And black is another great neutral color to have depending on the color of your layout. You just don't want to be using a fluorescent green. So while I had attached down the blue flowers, I hadn't yet attached down those pink flowers. So then I used some gel medium to attach the pink flowers down, and I used ATG adhesive to attach down some of the other elements on the page. It looked like there was something missing from that left-hand side of the photo cluster on the bottom, so I added a little stamp in that area. And now I'm using some white acrylic paint and a bristle brush, and I'm dabbing on a little bit of the acrylic paint just to the edges of all of the flowers. And I love the way the addition of some white highlights looks on the flowers. And I think that the white goes really nicely with these particular colors. I try not to be too heavy-handed. I try to just dab on a little bit of paint. You can always go back and add more, but it's a little bit harder to get rid of paint once you add it. So I am using a dry brush and just dabbing it onto the flowers. And then I wanted to add a little bit more modeling paste over the bottom photo cluster. I wasn't 100% thrilled with the way that it looked because it wasn't as crisp as I would like it to be, but I decided to just leave it, and I was happy that there was a little bit more stenciling over the photo. Now I'm adding some final touches to the layout. I add a butterfly right next to the title. I also added a little pink ticket to that cluster on top of and to the side of my photo at the bottom. I just kept adding elements because it looked like something was missing. And then I wanted to add a little sentiment to the tab that's on top of the photo at the bottom. So I cut out a word and it says memories, and I attached that down to the tab. And then I added some white enamel dots to the buttons on each of the banners, and that is the very last touch, and here are a few close-ups. As always, thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed watching it, maybe got some inspiration or ideas. And I think that the electrical work has ended just as I'm completing the voiceover for this video. Please don't forget to take a look in the description box where you'll find a link to the My Creative Scrapbook website where you can subscribe to one of their beautiful kits. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I hope to see you again soon, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.